Hello, welcome to Behind the Scenes. And today we're going to be talking about behind the scenes with processes. It's been a while since I've gone live. We've had a lot of great and amazing guest interviews that have been posted in the last couple of weeks. So if you missed those, need to catch up, head over to my channel at Elf Operations and check out some of the amazing guests that we've featured and had on, talking about their behind the scenes experiences and what they're working on in their businesses, their struggles that they've overcome to get them to where they are today, because there's not enough being talked about online or in person about the real behind the scenes journey that entrepreneurs and small business owners are going through. And I was reaching out to a couple of people in my network and in my audience and in the masterminds that I'm in, and I asked for feedback on what people wanted to hear with operations and processes, because that is a part of our business that is unsexy. It's not glamorous like sales. It's not flashy like marketing, but it is required to help us not be the bottleneck in our business. It's what helps us scale our business without being burnt out. It's what's going to lead our team to the next level and really help you to hit that multiple 6 and 7 figure income without overworking yourself. So that's why it's so important to me that we talk about it and get your processes straight and start thinking about it before you burn yourself out, because I want more entrepreneurs, more small business owners to feel success and have success without feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and burnt out. And processes are going to help get there, even though everyone that I was talking to, they hate talking about their processes. They hate putting them together, something that they shy away from. But, everyone talks about the flashy new software or the new tech in the industry, or the new tech that is being talked about, referred about, the influencers are talking about. But I don't know if y'all can hear Lila in the background, but she is here and playing. But we all talk about the big flashy tech and the big software, and I see people switching software. I help people switch software. But the problem sometimes isn't the software you're using. It's actually the process you're trying to get the software to do. And the problem is we push this. We don't look at the real problem. If you have been following my channel, or if you're new to my channel, you can go back and look at the 5 whys video that we talked about, where sometimes we don't always get to the core problem that we have, because we just take what we see as the problem at the face value, and why that exercise can really help you get down to the real problem. And sometimes you're bouncing around from software to software thinking it's going to fix something for you, but really you need to fix your process, tweak your process, or tweak something within it. So really that's the core root of a problem. So to fully understand this, we're going to define what a process is. And a process is a series of steps and decisions involved in the way work is completed. And this can happen not only in business, but it can be a process within your personal life. A process is those series of steps, and a process is also part of a bigger system when it's inside of your business. So, a good tangible example of this is your morning routine as a system, from when you wake up till when you leave the house. If you do leave the house, because I don't leave the house usually, because I work from home, but that's your system, is those series of processes, those series of steps. Sometimes there's more than one person involved in that system, because for me, I have the girls, and we have things that are being used, like we're making breakfast. That's a process. Brushing our teeth is a process, and that's all part of our morning routine, which is the system. So that's like a tangible, more concrete example between a process and a system. So a system is all of those processes working together. So it's all those sub processes working together for your marketing system, for your sales system, for your client deliverability, because you can have a lot that goes into it. And there's machines, there's processes, there's people, there's software. And so people sometimes make the mistake of thinking that the software is going to fix that process. But a process will consist of a few different elements that I don't think people realize or talk about enough. So you want to have what are the steps and decisions that within the process. So that's where process mapping and having a flow chart come in handy, because then you can visually see and understand where those decision points are happening or where there's potentially variability. And speaking of variability, there's variability of processing time and flow. So if you're, creating a standard process, maybe you're doing something only on Wednesdays, or you're only doing something on Mondays, or it's something that happens every day at 3 p.m. You have your manager checking that everyone's clocked out, so that people aren't letting their times rack up and creating more work, or there's a greater chance for errors when that happens. And then there are timing and interdependence, which goes with that flow and when the pattern is happening and when they're processing. So arrival times, processing times, when people are doing it. So there's also that piece of it. And then assignment of resources. So that's who's in your process and who's being assigned to it. I always say that you should assign it based on a role, not just a person. So when you're making these processes and documenting them out, I always tell my clients, and I do this myself, is putting in a role and like a title, so you're not going back and changing it when you have turnover. Because if the process is send to, let's say Emily, it's not, and Emily leaves, you got to go back through and change all those processes where her name is referenced, instead of saying send to the online business manager or send to the marketing manager. Makes it a little bit easier. There's less rework that's going to happen. But knowing who's involved in that process, so everyone can be aware of the updates that need to happen when there are process improvements. And a good process is going to be simple. If you're in my network, in my area, you've known that we talk about simple is always better, because I see clients, I see small business owners, they try to overcomplicate it. They make it way more flashy than it needs to be. But starting out with a good, simple process is important, because it also reduces the opportunity for error. When things are complex, people just won't do them, or they will make errors when it happens. So it makes it harder to control. It makes it harder to execute. And it's going to make it longer. So things aren't simple and they aren't clear. You're going to have people coming back to you or the managers, and you're going to have a lot of time wasted. And a good process is going to account for some variability within. You want to have a standard process for everything, but how you'd like it to go, basically, like the current flow, the ideal state. But there is going to be some times where there's variability that comes in, like unlikely input or environmental conditions can change. So unlikely inputs would be, say you have an onboarding process. I get this one a lot. An onboarding process, and you want everyone coming from your website and applying from your website to work with you. So sometimes there's unlikely inputs where you're at an in-person networking event and maybe someone wants to apply right then and there. So what are you going to do? How are you going to, how are you going to adapt for that? And how can you get them back into the process? So you might have a couple of different entry points that you're planning for in that process. And we call that, when I worked in manufacturing, we had engineering variability that we would build in for. So what was the tolerance level, or what was the engineering data points of, what were the parameters that we could operate in before it was dangerous or unsafe producing that product. And you can put similar pieces in place when it comes to your processes, if you're a service-based business, or maybe not an engineering product base, but you have like, what are my parameters to work within? And accounting for those within the process. You should have it documented, whether that be written or video documentation. Now with Loom, Scribe, there's different softwares that can help you electronically do it and transcribe it. So you don't have to write it all out if that's something that is holding you back. There are softwares that can help you define your process. Even if you do it once, say you record it once as current state, then you can go back and watch it and help yourself by creating a flow chart or a process map. And when you have that visual laid out in front of you, it's going to make it easier to improve that and see where there's potential room for error. And it helps you see, you know, where are the softwares that I'm using, where are the people that I'm using, when do they need to get pulled in, what's the timing, and it gives you a good starting point. So we call that the current state, and there's always, you know, future state when you are embodying a continuous improvement mindset and culture within your business. And that way you're also be able to control it. So you can control a good process. And once you have that written down, once you have those standards and those parameters in place, it's easier to control that process because then you're setting it and it's there. It's easier to be improved upon, like I was talking about with the process map, instead of reinventing the wheel every time, or, you know, letting your clients dictate how the process is going to run. And it's easier to communicate when you're hiring on and delegating, so that you can delegate effectively. They can easily see what's the inputs, what are the outputs of the process, and then expectations can be made more clearly, which is something that I see a lot of business owners and leaders struggling with. Is they don't have that defined process, they don't have it set, and then they throw tech into the mix and they can't communicate how to use the tech. They can't communicate what the output's supposed to be to their team. And then they're frustrated with the team member or the person who doesn't know how to complete it when they themselves also don't know. And they're causing undue errors that need to happen because there is a learning curve that comes with a lot of the software. And especially if you're changing softwares every so often, you're going to get more errors, especially in that first initial change period, because you don't know how to use it. Your team doesn't know how to use it. And I see a lot of people, they change their software and then they're like, oh, this isn't working, this isn't helping us, but they haven't gotten past that learning curve. They aren't seeing those improvement or the data speaking to, you know, what the software can do for them, because they're changing and not letting the software do what they need it to, or they don't know what they need the software to do, and they're just hoping the software will fix it. When the software, you need to tell it, you need to input and design it to do what you want it to do. I always tell my clients, you know, pick the software for what it can do for you, not pick the software because it's going to fix your problems, because it'll usually just create more problems if you don't know what you want the output to be. So those are some of the ways that you can help make your process better. And then, as always, making sure that once you have that process, every couple of months, you're reviewing the process, you're looking at the data. Once you have that set process to see, you know, if something's going wrong, if something needs to be changed, the data will tell you that. And once you have that process written down and it's simple, it has those variables, it's documented, you know how you're going to control it, then you can use the software to improve that process and make things automated, make things integrated, and help you get that visibility that you need. But before you document the process, the software is not going to be able to work for you, and it's going to cause a couple more errors. So those are some of the steps to follow and some of the ways that you can build out your processes before you jump into a new software. And don't jump around too much, or you're going to have a lot of that change management time where those errors are higher, and those errors are going to cause you maybe to have some setbacks in your operations and in your day-to-day. So making sure that you're committed and understand before you're changing softwares. So if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe, and check out some of our other videos with our guest speakers or other areas beyond operations and processes we've had guests on talking about cybersecurity, mindset, and sales. So those are a couple of the past episodes that you can check out if you haven't already. And if you're watching, I'd love to hear some comments about your biggest takeaway from the video today. And I hope that I hope you have a great rest of your week.